We have a few things to go over today. First up, we have a DIY handheld. We have a new handheld from PlayStation, some updates on the ROG Ally and how it compares to a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, some delays for AYN and AYANEO, and a new 7840 device. Welcome back everyone to another OKestWeekly recap where we cover all things handheld PC gaming. All news or no news, we'll cover every brand. And don't forget, if you enjoy this video, do the OKS thing and boop that like button. And if you're enjoying the channel, subscribe below. Alright, let's jump into it. This week we've seen many new reviews pop up for the ROG Ally, so we've been able to gather a little bit more information from piecing them together. In Taki Udon's video, he showed us some controller glitches where this was happening both in mouse mode as well as gamepad mode where the controller would just stop responding. There was also a strange bug where in one game that he was playing, he couldn't actually shoot the enemy. Anytime he pointed at them, it just wouldn't fire the weapon, so I'm not sure what that was all about, but it was definitely an interesting bug to see. Another issue that was reported is that the frame rate limits weren't really working properly, so it seemed to be that there was just a number of issues with the software. But thankfully, there's been a few updates to both the BIOS as well as the Armory Crate app. Last week I showed a little bit of data from the Fox's video, but after that video was put out, there was a BIOS update that got pushed to his device, and he said there was roughly a 12%, I believe, increase. We also got some performance metrics from Taki Udon, who was able to show that the 7840U and the Z1 Extreme seem to be performing fairly similar. So for myself and others that have pre-ordered the ROG Ally, this is good news to see that some of the updates are fixing some of the bugs as well as some of the performance concerns. So if you want to see more about what I was talking about, check out Taki Udon's video. I'll leave a link in the video description so you could easily find it. And another video that came out this week that was a little bit interesting that I want to talk about today was a video from Digital Foundry. So Digital Foundry did some comparisons with a few different devices. They compared it with the Steam Deck, they compared it with the AYN Neo Air Plus, as well as a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, which is very interesting to see. So I'll take you through a couple of screenshots from the video. If you want to see more information, I recommend checking out their video. I will also link that in the video description. And for these clips, I just picked a random time. I didn't cherry pick any moment. It's just a random screenshot from different areas of the video. So first up, we have controls. We have this at 720p low settings. And if you look at the Steam Deck, it's getting 66 frames per second at 15 watt. And if you take a look at the ROG Ally at 15 watts, we're getting 80 frames per second. So we're getting a decent jump over the Steam Deck in this particular game. If we take a look at the turbo mode, whether it's 25 watt or 30 watt, they're pretty much the same. We're getting 102 and 103 frames per second. The story changes quite a bit when we move over to Cyberpunk. So here we're getting 37 frames per second at 15 watt on the Steam Deck and only 39 frames per second on the ROG Ally at 15 watts. So the gain is very, very minimal here. But interestingly enough, when we bump up the TDP to either 25 watt or 30 watt, then we start to see a significant jump. So it seems like the ROG Ally prefers higher TDP levels to be able to run, which is, that's where we're not quite seeing what they were talking about with getting 2x performance, but in this game we're getting a significant jump at least at 30 watts. We aren't seeing that 50% increase at 15 watt that was in the marketing and what we were told at first, and it really seems to vary depending on the game that we're looking at. If we move over to Forza Horizon 5, we see decent gains at 15 watt versus the Steam Deck for the ROG Ally, but then when we move up to 30 watt, it's very similar to Cyberpunk. So Cyberpunk's performing well at high TDP, but not at 15 watt. But here it seems to be across the board. Now, it's not what they claimed as far as the performance gains over the Steam Deck, but it's still decent. Moving over to an interesting test that they conducted, we have the PlayStation 5 versus the ROG Ally. So here at 4K, we see a Plague Tale getting 37 frames per second on the PlayStation 5 and getting 10 frames per second on the ROG Ally. Even dropping that down to 720p, we're only getting 30 frames per second on the ROG Ally. Now, why I wanted to talk about this one is when we looked at the marketing slide that they presented where they showed the T-flops, you could see that the ROG Ally was marked at 8.6 T-flops, and the console they referenced, it's obviously the PlayStation 5 because the PlayStation 5 is 10.3 teraflops. This is kind of why I was saying not to use that as your measurement, because there's clearly a huge divide between the PlayStation 5 here and the ROG Ally. This isn't something like 8.6 versus 10.3. If that was the case, we would be seeing probably 30 frames per second at 4K on the ROG Ally. But I think most that have been in the handheld scene for a while kind of expect that, this thing is not going to compete with a PlayStation 5 or Series X. But another comparison where it can compete is against the PlayStation 4. So they also did a test of God of War on the ROG Ally versus the PlayStation 4. That's the base model PS4. And at 1080p, we see that the PlayStation 4 is scoring 36 frames per second, and 15 watts for the ROG Ally is at 32. So it's getting close. But then when we bump that up to 25 or 30 watt, then we're actually exceeding the score of the PlayStation 4. So this is, we haven't really seen this too much for this particular game. So seeing it being able to outperform the PlayStation 4 without any other additional settings that you have to kind of tweak to get that, like we did with the 6800U. But one of the advantages of playing on PC is that you can do those tweaks. So we can turn on FSR and increase our performance, where on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, like we can't really do much. There's a little bit in the menus, but you can't, enable FSR and play with a lot of settings. It's usually just a toggle of performance, quality, and possibly one other mode. So if you found this interesting, check out those videos that I left in the video description. You'll definitely get more information than I'm sharing here. Okay, so that's going to do it for the ROG Ally. Let's move on to the next device. Well, big news everyone, we got our first look at the new PlayStation Vita 2, and it's a pretty slick looking device. Just kidding, it's actually just a tablet fused with a PS5 controller. PlayStation revealed the Project Q alongside some new PlayStation earbuds. As suspected, it seems to need a PlayStation 5 to connect, and only connects over the local network. Any games that you have in your PlayStation 5, you should be able to remote play into with this device and play within your home network. So unfortunately, this turns out to be more of a PS5 accessory than it is a standalone handheld. I mean, we all kind of expected that, but I kind of tricked myself into hoping for more. So what do you think of this new PlayStation 5 accessory? Are you going to be picking it up, or is this something you're going to skip? Let's talk about it in the comments or in the Discord. This week I wanted to cover something a little bit different that I thought was pretty cool. I came across a video that was shared by my friend Bubble Goose in one of the many handheld servers. I don't know which one, but I believe every time a handheld server comes to life, Bubble Goose was already there. But anyway, this video is for the NUCDECK, which it really caught my attention just with how neat this device was. So the project is for a DIY open source handheld, and the project creator is basically showing you step by step his progress as he works through this project. I was able to get a hold of the project creator to learn a little bit more, so I was able to ask him kind of what the inspiration for the project was and what was the hopeful outcome. When I asked him for the inspiration, he said that he really just enjoys building stuff and wanted to create a powerful handheld device. He said that he went with the Intel NUC because it offers a good price to performance ratio, and he's aiming to have the project compatible with any generation of that chip. So some of the desired outcomes for this project is to be able to create a base for the community to work with and create their own modifications and kind of continue to build on this. He wanted to make the project as easy to build as possible, so it's not necessarily something that's going to be for people that don't have experience, but for those that do, that they can make it as easily as possible. So he's taken some steps to make this a little bit easier for people to put together without compromising too much for the final product. The hope is that the quality and function of this device will be similar to what you'd find in a commercial product, as well as similar battery life. I'll give you a short summary of some of the progress that he's made, but definitely check out his videos if you want to see a little bit more information. I've gotten permission to use a little bit of his video footage to give you a bit of a preview, but definitely go check out his channel and subscribe if you're interested in this type of project. Some updates for the project is that the shell is completed, but he wants to make sure that everything fits just right before he releases that, so we'll have to wait to hear more for that. The controller prototype is well underway, so this isn't his first rodeo. He's built 5 other controllers for portable consoles, so he believes in the next revision or 2 he should have all the bugs sorted out. There's some parts that he's waiting on to get the touchscreen working, so hopefully we'll see an update on that soon, as well as waiting on a new display driver that should take a little bit less tweaking. He's currently on the early stages of working with the battery management system, so this could take a little bit of time, as well as working on the software for the controller itself. So this should be likely completed after he gets a complete prototype controller. So that's the updates I have for the progress. It's a very neat project, and if this is something that you're interested in, I would recommend again, checking out his YouTube channel, maybe chat with him in the comments there. I've seen him reply to most people that comment, and I'm not really sure if he has further plans, like maybe he has a Discord server that you can connect in. I'd have to double check with him. But for now, head over to the YouTube channel and you should be able to communicate with him on the comments, and I believe he has a Twitter account that you could also reach him at. All right, so that's going to do it for this section, so let's move on to the next area. Moving over to AOKZOE, I don't have a lot to go over today. One thing to note is that the Indiegogo campaign is coming to an end, so by the time you're watching this, it may be over. Or if you're watching this on Sunday, you still have, I think, 2 days to put in your order. So if you're looking at this device, now's the time to jump on it. It's not that you can't buy it after the fact, but you will get a much better deal if you purchase through Indiegogo. And if you do decide to purchase on Indiegogo, make sure that you watch out for the tip option. Make sure to set that to 0. That doesn't go to AOKZOE. That's actually just Indiegogo setting that automatically. So you know the drill. The link is going to be in the video description. Feel free to check it out if you're interested. Okay, so that's all I got for AOKZOE. Let's move on to the next device. This week for OneXPlayer, there's actually a couple things to go over today. There's a new OneXPlayer 2 Pro that seems to be coming out soon. It's running the 7840U, and I don't have more info than that, other than they advertise a special edition. Now, I'm not sure if this is a China exclusive or what the situation is on it, but it's a Evangelion edition, and you can find it on their Chinese website. So I'm going to do a little more digging into this to see what else I can find, but it sounds like they're going to be doing some testing sometime in June in China. So hopefully from that, there should be more information. Maybe some Billy videos will pop up, or maybe I can get some information from OneXPlayer themselves. The other device that we've been watching and kind of waiting for an update, I still don't have anything. Hopefully we'll get something soon, but for the OneXFly, my prediction is that it's going to be running a 7840U and it's going to be a smaller option. Of course, that's just my speculation. I could be wrong on this, but I have a feeling that they've done away with the lower cost chip option. Aside from device speculation, there's currently a sale on. It's the Memorial Day sale. So if you're in the market for a OneXPlayer, check it out. They're about $200 to $250 off for the OneXPlayer 2 as well as the OneXPlayer Mini Pro. So check the video description. You'll find the link there and check it out if you're interested. All right, well, that's going to do it for my OneXPlayer updates. Let's move on to the next section. This week for AYN, we got to see the final production model for the Loki Max. They showed it running their new software as well as some gameplay. The device looks like it's almost ready to go and should be heading out to reviewers shortly. Unfortunately, they missed their target for May 23rd. They had encountered some issues that they wanted to take care of before they sent it out, so they should be sending it out sometime this week. So it seems like the backers are finally on the verge of seeing their devices, which is great to hear. So I'm going to keep everyone up to date as I learn more, and hopefully we get to see the devices ship out very soon. One last update came in just as I was finishing editing, so it seems that there's been a delay up till June 9th due to some fan issues during production. We also learned that they're not going to be using the Hall sensor joystick because there's been too many errors with some of the units that they were producing, so they're going to potentially make this available later as an accessory you can order on the website. Okay, so that's going to do it for AYN this week. Let's move on to the next section. This week for AYANEO, I don't have a lot to go over. I was expecting to be able to cover the AYANEO 2S and Geek 1S campaign and show you what the prices were and what models were available. Unfortunately though, there has been a delay. It was supposed to be live on the 25th of May, but they're pushing it back to the end of May. They haven't told us exactly what day, but it should be coming soon. I mean, the end of May is just in a couple days. So depending on when you're watching this, it may already be live for you or it may still be coming in a day or two. The reason they provided for the delay was that the press event editing was taking a little longer than they thought, so they wanted to make sure they got it right and are going to be delaying it for a couple of days because of that. They anticipate that the campaign will go live after the press event or possibly the next day or two after. I'll leave a link in the video description for the Indiegogo page. It's not live yet, but you can sign up for email notifications for when the project goes live, so check that out if you're interested in this device. That's really all I have for AYANEO this week, so let's move on to the next section. This week for the Steam Deck, it was a bit of a slower week, so I'm just going to go over a couple of the updates for the beta client. So we had one on the 23rd as well as the 25th. For the 23rd, there was a number of bug fixes, as well as a couple of things that have been tweaked. So they restored the time zone setting to the general panel, they added the search field on the global achievements tab, as well as added a show spoiler option for hidden achievements on the global achievements tab. There was also some fixes for gyro on both the DualSense controller as well as mouse. And moving over to the update on the 25th, it seems to mostly be related to desktop mode or just a number of bug fixes. So if you're interested in these, I'll leave the links in the video description and you can check out the full changelog online. Alright, so that's going to do it for the Steam Deck. Let's move over to the next section. This week for GPD, I don't have a ton to go over, but I do have a couple things. So the first thing is the WinMax 2 campaign is still live on Indiegogo. So if you're interested in the refresh for the 7840U or the 7640U, check it out. I'll leave a link in the video description. And the second bit that I want to cover is that it seems that they are very likely planning a 7840U refresh for the Win 4. Previously, I had reported that they were not planning that because that's what they had said at the time, but it looks like, at least if we're reading into the Indiegogo comment that they made, it sounds like they're planning one, and they're going to be replacing the USB-A port with an OcuLink port. So I really don't know the timeline for when this refresh will be coming out, or whether they're going to have an option for current Win 4 users to upgrade or buy a new board. We're going to have to wait to see what their plans are. One last bit of news, not particularly for GPD, but I actually have a Win 4 that's on its way. I should have it probably a day or two after this video goes live, so stay tuned. I'm going to be doing a first impressions video on it, and then later on I'm going to do a review after I've had a chance to play with the device and get a little bit of a feel for it. And that's all I've got for GPD. Let's move on to the next section. This week for Boosteroid, it looks like what I covered last week for the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard will now have an impact on Boosteroid services, but in a good way. Microsoft has signed a 10-year partnership with Boosteroid to bring its titles to the service. Just like the other stores like Steam, Epic, and GOG, the games that you own are slowly going to be starting to come to the service. So we have a few games that are coming up on June 1st. The first batch of games is Deathloop, Grounded, Pentiment, and Gears 5. Microsoft and Boosteroid are going to continue to expand the library to bring more titles that you own to the service. For those curious what Boosteroid is a cloud gaming service that allows you to access games that you own, whether it's on Steam, Epic, GOG Galaxy, and now Microsoft. If they have it in their game library and you own the game, you'll be able to play it remotely with high fidelity and fairly lag-free gameplay. I've left a link in the video description as well as a link to the video where I covered this and tested it out in a few different network environments within my home. So feel free to check those out if you're interested. And that's going to do it for this week's recap. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for watching.